In the early years after the war, Australia was a young, vibrant nation on the move. Work was easy to find, and by 1954, every 15-year-old who wanted one had a job. With money to spend, teenagers focused on fun. It didn't take long for big business to size up this new generation as a goldmine. So products were made just for teenagers. Music was life, and it was also portable. No longer the sounds of silence. The big American record companies packaged up the latest overnight teen sensation and sent them out to conquer the world. It was rampant froth and frenzy in Melbourne when Fabian arrived, all teeth and hair.
There are 30 police on duty, and it looks as though they need 30 more.
But police had learnt a lesson by the time the travelling man Ricky Nelson hit town.
The youngsters have to be kept in their place by the strong arms of the law.
Nelson was a teen idol, a recording star. But more importantly, Ricky was also one of Ozzie and Harriet's two favourite sons. The Nelsons was a TV hit. And in 1956, television invaded our lounge rooms.
TV Channel 9 is the call sign of General Television Corporation Proprietary Limited and will soon be the call sign for the top entertainment in Australian television.
There's gonna be some quaking and a whole lot of shaking. Everybody, it's 6 o'clock.
TV salesmen gave teenagers their very own shows.
Swinging, everybody, it's 6 o'clock.
By the end of the 50s, the youth market was worth about £300 million. As teenagers splurged on clothes and on leisure and entertainment. Fads and fashion changed on a whim. What you wore, what you looked like, what kind of music you listened to, could brand you straight away.
Yes, we see. That's when I fell for leader of the pack.
Rockers were a variation on the bodgy theme. They took their look from 50s screen idols like James Dean and Marlon Brando. The motorbikes and the leather jackets were the fashion accessories for some working-class teenagers. The papers had a field day, depicting them as delinquents and rebels without a cause.
At Sydney Showground, there's a monster stomp, and there are about 20,000 monsters, sorry, stoppers, showing just how it should be done. It's the newest dance craze, but if you're easily embarrassed, it's not for you. After all, some people just don't like treading on other people's corns.
Well, I got my beach towel and I'm heading down to the surf. Gonna see my Johnny, gonna meet him down at the surf. We're gonna shoot the breakers, gonna stop.
In the 60s, the natural enemy of the rocker was the surfie.
'Cause he's my blonde-headed sophomore real gun surfer boy, yeah, 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 yeah.
The beach, like the bush, was part of our culture. The cut-offs and the cozies were as Australian as the kangaroo. Summer holidays meant the surf and the sand, and if you got lucky, a sizzling romance. Or else, you could just lie on your towel and dream.
With my blonde-headed sophomore real gun surfer boy, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Suddenly, in the mid-60s, we were hit by a musical tidal wave, all the way from Merseyside in England. Liverpool took over from Los Angeles. The Beach Boys were wiped out by the Beatles.
It's a long way from Melbourne to Liverpool, and the road that is now top of the chart throughout the world.
Red-blooded Aussie boys let their hair down and let it grow, just like John and Paul and George and Ringo. And our girls started dressing in miniskirts, the latest fashion from London's Carnaby Street shops.
Now from AWA.
It was yet another new look and yet another new language.
What are the in words this year?
And gas, king, great, fab. words like grouse and guest and things like that, they're all stupid.
The Carnaby 7, the Carnaby 8, and the swinging break.
Crazy!
The Carnaby Groove.
From AWA.
Wow!
1965, the year when Australia, with a population of about 11 million, bought more than 10 million records. The year when Australian artists competing against the best in the world put 5 records in the list of the 10 top sellers.
By the mid-60s, Australian teenagers were no longer just chooks, following overseas trends. We started hatching a few roosters of our own.
Right now, I thought we might play the record that you got the great second gold record for.
Okay.
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Normie Rowe was one local idol whose face plastered the walls of teenage bedrooms. And suddenly it seemed teenagers were getting younger. Mostly girls with pocket money to burn, they became known as teeny boppers. And now, even before they got pimples, they got a say in the fashions.
Can I borrow the car?
Well, I remember when
Into the 1970s, and a boom in apartment blocks saw many older teenagers leave the family nest before they got married.
Then I heard the black man's blues, it really blew.
The sexual revolution had arrived.
So with some friends we made a stand and found out.
They'd always been old enough to die in war. Now in 1973, 18-year-olds were given the vote. And school habits had changed too. Now most Australian 16-year-olds stayed on at school. More and more teenagers were going off to university. Students became the new revolutionary leaders.
Sure, our function at school is to learn, but in order to learn properly, we have to be allowed to function as human beings.
The gap between generations seemed to be getting wider. Young people who'd known only about peace and the pill now wanted to learn more about love. In 1974, the Victorian hamlet of Sunbury became the site of our first big pop festival.
Rock and roll and you're still doing it now.
30,000 would-be flower children took their clothes off for a weekend of music, merriment and mud baths. Along with the beads and the hippie culture came the bongs and the drug culture. Illegal drugs had been used for most of our century. What made the 70s different was that they were being flaunted and pushed for the first time.
Johnny?
Oh, come on, pot's okay. It's non-addictive. It's only the beginning of the problem, man. Squares who call it a problem only show they don't know the first thing about it. Go on, try it.
No, thanks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the African Queen Chatswood. My name's Angie, and I'd like to say hello to everybody here tonight.
Most Australian teenagers went back to doing what they'd always done.
Just all to get stuck into this one, because